What is happening, YouTube? I have the new Tech NTS-1 digital kit made by Korg here in front of me in the box. I thought I would put this together on camera. I realize that this is 2 years old and there are plenty of other videos out there that are putting this together. It's going to be better than what I can offer you, but I thought I would do this anyways. I will talk about a few different things that hopefully the other videos haven't even addressed, so maybe this will be interesting for you. First question is, why did I wait so long to get this? And I guess the reason is because I already have all their other little analog offerings that they put out in the years before. This is a neat little kit, the NTS-1, because it's digital, whereas these are all analog. Now, I do want to address something. The digital function inside of the Monotron is a PT2399 chip, which is technically a digital chip. But everything else is analog. Now, I just want to address that really quickly because a lot of people have a lot of contention about analog and digital. And I want to say for the record that I'm more of a fan of digital when it comes to effects like delay and reverb, because you just can do more easier with digital than you can analog. I do have analog delay and reverbs, and they're great, but the digital counterparts that I have of delays and reverbs are usually a lot more expressive. You can do a lot more with them. So for example, with delay you have more delay time. Usually with analog you have a very short delay time, and digital you have a very, very long delay time. So with the effects with the NTS-1, we're going to find that they're going to be a lot more expressive, kind of more usable. It's up to you to mix them in yourself. You can always do things to take something that is a digital signal and turn it more analog. But I assure you, once it comes out of these headphone jacks, it's really more analog than digital, okay? Okay, well, let's move on. I do love to be controversial. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and open this up. All right, yay, I got some sort of software, software bundle. And the manuals are usually too large to fit onto screen. They usually start with the English section up top. This is nice. We get to see a block diagram section. So here we have an Arpeggiator, interesting, which affects both the oscillator and I guess the envelope generator. Our input comes in after the oscillator and the filter and the envelope generator and goes into the mod. I'm not sure what mod delay reverb. So our different modulations, which would be like chorus, phaser, vibrato perhaps, flanger, then delays, and then reverb. So that's really pretty good stacking of those kinds of things. You get your mod to get sort of a doubling or a sort of a texture to the oscillator and filter sound, and then delay to get this nice backing, sort of doubling, and then the reverb to just sort of like wash everything out. So that's really handy. That's really nice. Okay, now yes, I did watch the Korg assembly video before I opened this up. Thought that would be a good idea. So I'm going to try to set this down here to the side in case I need it. And of course, I'm not sure how much of the video I will be showing you. I probably will just go ahead and edit out the assembly of the case itself. This is really nice how they have this packed in here though. That's like pretty darn handy. So I'll open this up and give you a little screwdriver. I have my own set of screwdrivers here though. Nice, as usual, they give you like a nice USB power. I always forget what that is, C or whatever. And this is the actual outer case itself. So here we got a couple sides, I think, side pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull these out if I can. If I have my tweezers handy, maybe these will help me. Yep. And that should do it for the box. I'll put this software code back in here. I won't be downloading any software anytime soon, I don't think. I might check out some other, third-party software thingies that you can download for this later. Now this is so very, very cool how they did this, I believe, because what we have is a complete printed circuit board, where some of the printed circuit board is the case itself. And my buddy David Notes and Volts, he's been experimenting with this recently with a lot of great success. So instead of having his own front plates and back plates and the whole enclosure milled out, or just using like a stomp box enclosure, he'll use a PCB printing service to print out this whole kind of thing thusly. I guess the next step, Dave, is to figure out how to have like a perforated line so we can just snap everything off and one piece does it all. So I want to talk just a little bit about this before I snap it apart. This is actually really cool. We've got our potentiometers here. So first of all, this one on the left is not a potentiometer. It's actually a rotary encoder, an endless rotary encoder, which will always be digital, by the way. And it could be like as so slightly digital as necessarily just like the smallest amount of digital components, so to speak. But for the most part, you have to sort of have a digital kind of nature to the circuit to track which way it's going, left or right, and then if it's actually making any difference. These, on the other hand, are pretty much just completely analog. And these are just like voltage dividers, which I don't want to get into, but that's another topic. And then we have just nice little buttons here on top. So I have here some of my own buttons that are very, very similar. These are momentary switches, and these are PCB mounted. So the issue here is just that, you know, if something happens to these, likewise with the encoder and the potentiometers, you don't want them to rip out. They're not completely stabilized. So the only stability that they have is from the circuit board itself. So you want to kind of treat them lightly when you see these sorts of things. The alternative, for example, this is another momentary switch. But this one would be mounted to the actual enclosure itself. There'd be like a hole drilled like here, and we would throw it through and then rethread the screw to mount it in. And then we have wires that would be soldered to this, and they would go to wherever they needed to on the back of the circuit board, which would be, again, mounted somewhere inside of the enclosure so that if it got knocked around, it wouldn't fall loose and touch other components and short out circuits where we don't want to do those kinds of things. Here's a display. It's an LED display, a digit display. I have one here that's just to kind of give you an idea. The same thing, it solders right in here to the back of it. This one's much larger. It's the same amount of digits, but a larger one. I would love to go into the details of that stuff. I'm totally not even brushed up on how to even use one of these things right off the top of my head, but they're really, really cool. They're actually just very analog, believe it or not. I mean, digital components control them and so forth, but you know, you just kind of like, hey, if I give voltage to these two pins, it lights up this little guy right here. So that's very analog, but you treat it, you apply it with a digital kind of, what am I trying to say, a solution. Okay, let's move on. So on the back, we've got various SMD components for convenience. This chip being probably some kind of major controller. It might be actually like handling the multiplexing for this encoder, for example. It might be handling like if these are being turned or not, if these buttons have been pushed, what to display on the screen itself. And from here we've got these pins on the side which are going to mount into the base plate down here when we get to that into a second. And these are really cool. I've actually got some here, these little pins. So these are like the males. On the other side would probably be the females. And what's nice about these male headers is that you can just buy like a whole row of them and then snap them off to size as need be. The females, however, you really can't do that. I've tried to cut them, usually with bad success, and here's some of the females on this side. We'll get to these later. But these you have to purchase at the correct size that you want. So 12, 16, 10, 8, however many. These are what, 6? So these are 6 pins. And again, this is just what's going to, if I understand this correctly, and we're going to attach the ribbon controller too. So we got the ribbon controller, these this encoder, these potentiometers, and these buttons, these momentary switches. And this chip, if I understand correctly, is going to basically just relay all of that across these pins to the main motherboard here, so to speak. And let's get to that. maybe I should first try to snap this off. So I think the first thing I want to do is snap it here very carefully. And it's possibly going to be slightly off camera. Sorry about that, but I would rather get a nice, very nice break on this very carefully. And I'm just bending this back and forth as best as I can. There we go. And that gets a pretty good break. Now if I wanted to, and I probably should, very carefully get a little piece of sandpaper and sand that right here. In fact, I'm going to probably go grab a little bit of sandpaper. Yeah, I should do that now. The problem is that I don't want to do that here. I want to do that a little bit off camera over here. Okay, I have a little bit of sandpaper here. I don't know what the grit is. It's something 20. It's very, very fine though, so this should be actually pretty good. So I'm going to take this off camera and do a little sanding. I'll do that unfortunately for each piece that I do. Oh yeah, I definitely recommend doing that. It feels much, much, much better. You can see how much I actually removed. So same thing here. I just like to have this like going straight across the edge of a table. Perhaps I should do the smaller one first. I mean the one that gets the back edge first. We'll get more leverage that way. These are, very sturdy, believe it or not. The issue with these, mostly this one, not to bend any, break any traces underneath this board that you can barely see, but they did a good job of separating. Like here's where the traces are. Let me get into the camera, sorry. The traces don't show up until about that far, about an inch or so. We do have the ribbon connector here, which gets a little tricky. So really about this far, that's pretty good clearance for making sure that nothing is actually going to be cracked underneath this when you try to break and separate it. These pieces, however, it gets really, really tricky, and I wish I had something a little bit better to safely kind of hold it, support it, and snap it off. Something like this awesome set of channel locks, for example, but I don't really want to mar up the PCB by grabbing onto it. So if I had some cloth ready to go, that might be the answer, but I don't. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is slowly, patiently pulling away at this until I break it off. So I think one thing I can do, rather than try to bend it on the table back and forth this way, is push down and now flip it over and push down from the other side. Excuse me, not push down, bend up. It's a little easier to bend up than push down from this angle. So I'll just keep flipping it back and forth, using this blue piece here to kind of help a little bit, not so much. So what we got here, we got volume, USB, MIDI in, sync out and in, and audio in. This is really, really nice little device. So just like each one of the original Monotrons, one of my favorite being the Monotron delay, you can use this as a oscillator itself, as a keyboard, a synthesizer, or as an effects unit. In this case, you can use the filter and the delay. There it goes. Okay, I will sand that off in a moment. One more piece to go. And I think that's it in terms of like breaking everything off. So that's just 3 breaks, and here it goes. Okay, be right back. I'm going to do a little bit of sanding. Okay, if you do sand these pieces off, I recommend you be very careful. You do not want to breathe that stuff in, definitely not. That is fiberglass, very bad for you. And definitely wash your hands off. I got a little bit of dust residue, but I think I got it knocked off. Okay. Now, this is going to be the back side. I'd almost rather be the front side, but this is where we put the little feetsies on. we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this open using my scalpel knife. And this is very interesting how they did this. I think, yeah. Nope, you just kind of pop them out. Here we go. And try to move the back plastic piece off. That's not what you want to do. So I'm going to try to line these over these little circles as best as I can. And also going to hope that it's still going to manage to level out once this is placed down. Okay, the rubber feet are on. And I have some garbage to deal with already. So let's move on. Okay, let's go ahead and get this out. So that way I will feel like I have some more room on the table than not. We could start to talk about this a little bit, but I'm going to wait. So I think it doesn't really matter which way you go with these. They just fit. So all I need to do is just line these up thusly. Make sure that I have all of this on the right side. Then everything should line up. However, whereas this one fits in snugly, this one does not. So not really sure what's up about that. Let me go ahead and get this ribbon strip and put it just here for now. I'll put that on later. Right now, though, I'm just going to try to figure out, take a look at the manual real quick. So yeah, these pieces fit on, but I don't see where they attach to the large ones. And they don't. Okay. So for right now, we're just attaching the silver pieces. And I don't really guess it matters which side. They both fit the same, which is kind of good, I guess. So, and I'm also going to screw in. The question is, though, is that which of the screws do I use? Let me look back at this again. And it looks to be the longer ones. Now, something else I can do, I could have done this with the screwdriver that they provided for me as well, but I have this little magnetizer. I can just make sure that I'm well magnetized. This helps out a bit. No pun intended. Now they give me 2 extra screws in case I lose one. Yep, that's a lot better. So right off the bat, I do not recommend using the screw they give you. I mean, it's great that they provide you with one, you know, in case you're in a bind. But I don't recommend it if you have something better. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these all the way down, I guess, but not too tight. I don't see them vibrating loose any decade soon. I can tighten everything down later when it's all assembled, perhaps. Sometimes you want to keep things loose, but in this particular case, you know, that's sturdy. It's not meant to be loose. Okay, that's one piece down. I think that's going to be okay. Seems kind of weird with these screws sticking out through there, but I'm sure it will be fine. And if it's not, I'll just do it again. And you know what? There's a piece of plastic right there I was supposed to take off. I see it now. Grrr. Question is, do I want to leave it on or do I want to take it off? You know what? I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to make sure that I put this on the same side as that one. Maybe a bad idea, but it seems kind of cool, actually. Like a little protective plastic going over this, which will prevent the stainless steel from being stained. Okay. Now these are these sides going that way. question here now just becomes, you know, what's going on? What do I do next? So we'll have to look at the manual, I guess. Okay, so yeah. Aha, I see. I think I see. There's holes here at the top, and that's where the black screws go in. So now I do this. This is really cool. Really easy to construct, or to put together, I guess I should say. Okay, this is not going to be the same size bit. Definitely not. So I'm going to move this one over here, and I'll find the correct size one by taking the screw itself and just kind of fitting it against various ones. And that one's too big. This one is perfect. So I'm leaving this bit out because I'm going to need to use it again. And let's go ahead and magnetize this one. And off we go. Okay, moving on. So from here, what is next? The next step, I suppose, is to attach the keyboard ribbon. That is done by first getting the strip going. You don't want to take it off completely, but just get it started. And try not to touch the adhesive underneath it. Make sure your hands are clean during all of this, if you can help it. Make sure we're going the right way. Black keys are up. We're going to try to line this up as best as we can. So I'm going to take this right over the lines that are there. I think that's good. Okay. That's something that you don't want to have to do again if you can help it. Not unless you're prepared and ready to clean off the adhesive and maybe apply more adhesive that you already have ready to go, and it's the right adhesive and it's going to bond well with what was already there. Yeah, that is something, this is probably the most critical step actually. Apart from, you know, not breaking this, which is actually very, very resilient. But here we have 3 conductors. So one is going to be ground, I suppose, but then again, yeah, 3 conductors. We have room for 4, but that top one up there is terminated. It's not being used. I have really no idea what the other ones are being used for. But one of them probably is ground, and then we have 2 more for whatever reason. So these guys are always tricky. I don't know what to say. These are always tricky. Okay, here we go. First thing we want to do is we want to bump these this little black part, or this dark gray part, super charcoal color, up like that. There we go. You can just use your fingernails. If you have the right tool, it's better. This is fine enough. It's perfect. And it's okay to have it looped out like that. That's fine. So I'm just going to try to hold it steady while I push it in. Maybe. There we go. And that should be sturdy. So that's a flex ribbon cable, and all it's doing is connecting this capacitive touch ribbon to the daughter board here, if you want to call it that, the top plate. Awesome. So from here, all we need to do, once that is in, is connect these 2. Okay. Now before I do that, let's kind of talk a little bit about some of the components here. So of course we have our really handy 1/8 inch jacks. Some of these are TS, some of these are probably TRS. They're all TRS, but some of these are probably only used as TS, meaning that we don't really care about the tip and the sleeve. We just need a tip really. And I'm sorry, the tip and the ring. We don't care about the ring so much. Which ones would those be? Well, probably the sync in and out, for example. We only need TS for that. We just need one conductor and ground for a clock, for example. But the audio in and the audio out, we probably want stereo, so we would use TRS. We want to use the tip for the left channel and the ring for the right channel, and of course we still need ground to connect the circuits and to shunt any external interference. Here is the power coming in, the jack for the power, and this is just a little USB-C. I've got like a whole bunch of these little guys right here. These are the little, these are ones connected to daughter boards where I can have pins, and they're like adapters that I could use to connect to a larger through-hole circuit if I needed to. But yeah, that's all that these are, and they just, as you can see, we've got voltage, data minus, data plus, and then something else. I think it's ID and then ground. I'm not sure what ID is used for, but basically you've got power and then 3 other conductors that you can use for communication. What else do we have on here that's interesting? These are the female headers that I was telling you about. Here I've got a sack of them right here. And these you have to order 2 sizes, I said before, because of just, you know, the nature of how that they are built. You can't snap these apart, unfortunately. This little guy right here, these are like my favorites. These are crystal oscillators. And that's some kind of a clock, is what I would have to guess. It's creating a clock for the rest of whatever. Very, very cool stuff. I don't have any potentiometers like this. This is like a wheel, which is really, really cool. Looks like we've got 5 conductors coming out of it. So it's handling stereo is what's going on with that. It's handling both the left and the right, attenuating it coming out. And here is a nice little enclosed speaker. I've got some other speakers, but yeah, here they are. These may be very, very similar. I'm not sure. These that I have are 8 ohm. They handle 2 watts, these are little beefy little speakers right here. Very nice. Very cheap too. They're only like 50 cents a piece. I'm not sure what they are these days. Probably not too much more expensive. But yeah, as far as these jacks are concerned, like plugging things in and out, you just want to be very careful. I would say with this device, you don't want to keep things plugged in when you're in storage. You want to unplug things and put it away, because what ends up happening is the stress on these connectors, excuse me, these jacks. Sometimes words is hard. The stress on these jacks will lift them off the pads, off of the PCB itself, which is pretty bad actually. And there's a lot going on here, so it would be kind of difficult to route where these pads are actually going to. That is something I don't want to have to deal with. Now, I do know when I purchased my Monotron original, the output headphone jack suffers from that problem that I'm talking about. And I had to open this up and figure it out. And it's not too hard, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to fix. And what it is, well, one of these little conductors right here lifts off the pad, and the pad itself is what's connected to the inside trace that's going underneath this sandwiching layer of this PCB that goes to wherever it needs to go to. And there's no longer a connection there. So no matter what you do, you can solder as much as you want to. There's no longer a connection. And really the only way to make a connection is to find a trace somewhere where this connects to and scratch it off and solder a wire from wherever the conductor on the jack is to wherever the trace is that you scratched off on the PCB. That's fun. It's not fun at all. So here I have a couple other jacks for 1/8 inch, connector connector. This starts to get really confusing with the words, as you can see. This is a panel mount 1/8 inch jack, and it's meant to be wired. So all of these little conductors right here are meant to have wires connected to them, and it secures itself to the panel, which would be like this thing. You drill a hole into it and then just have this coming out of it. It'd be much more secure that way. However, it's not very modern and it's not very compact, and that's the reason why we're able to do this. What we're doing with this is because making those compromises. The ramification is on you, the consumer, to treat your gear more delicately. Be very careful when you're on stage with this going wild. But this gets a little tricky because we have these little switches. I will get into that in a second. If you look very carefully, you may be saying to yourself, no, wait a second. Why do I need to have 5 if I just have ground and left and right? Well, the reason why is because we can carry a left and the right signal across this thing, which is probably what's happening in the output. So let's see, which one is the output? Here is our output, and it's a headphone jack. So it's not really a line out. It's really designed more for headphone. And what that means is that it's going to be louder, I think. Don't quote me on that one, but I think it's going to be a little bit louder. So you would, kind of turn this down a little bit when you're in, when you want to take it into something else. Oh, I almost forgot to snap these off, by the way. I need to do that first. I'm glad that I saw that. And these snap off very well, by the way, I see. That's actually very nice. They're not connected at all on one side and only to the other, so that you don't have any risk of trying to, bend the board here. That's really dangerous if you did that. Okay, but back to the output headphone jack. Now, again, I can't tell by looking at this, where all the traces go. They're hidden. Some of the traces go in the back. Some of them might even be in the middle somewhere, where it's like almost impossible to know where they're going unless you're looking at an actual diagram. But inevitably, what's happening is the output signal is coming to this jack. And then from there, it's using, as I showed you before, you see we've got 5 here. A left and a right and ground, but we've got 2 for left and 2 for right. The extra ones for the left and the right are used here to go to the speaker. And what ends up happening is that these jacks also act as switches, so that when you insert something into it, it breaks the contact. So in this particular case, the signal is getting to the speaker, and it's going via way of this jack. So normally, without anything else being connected, the output will come to the speaker. But as soon as I insert into the headphone jack, it breaks the connection to the speaker, which is what we want, and that's how that works. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, let's get these off. I'm going to use a tool to help me do that. I think these pliers will be beefy enough. These are the kind of some of the smaller ones that I have, but they should be okay. And I'm going to just gently rock it back and forth. I'm going to try to secure it here with my hand. Again, you want to be really careful with this part. There we go. And yeah, we can sand this off if we want to. These I'm not too worried about sanding off. The reason why is because they should be internal, where they're not going to be touched by anything. But I'm just getting the pliers there as close to where the break off is as I can, and just trying to real gently. There we go. These should break off. They're easy to break off, but you still want to be real gentle. Now I'm going to reverse hands, because this is not too hard to do ambidextrously, I don't think. Come on, we can do this. And this way I'm able to get like better use of my body to provide the correct leverage to this. And then finally, the last corner piece here, I'm using my thumb and my finger underneath on the jack to kind of support the board a little bit. There we go. Because we have these tiny little capacitors here. Nothing really more capacitors and resistors here. I'm assuming the resistors, sometimes they may be inductors, but they're normally resistors. There we go. Now, which way is which? Here we go. This is the bottom where the headphone jack is. And then the top is where our interfacing is. And headphone and power. Excuse me, not headphone, master volume. Okay, so... And there's really, yeah, you would know that you're doing this wrong if you did that, I believe, if you put it in that way. So from here, you want to just make sure that these are straight, and they should be. If they weren't, if they were bent for whatever reason, never fear, man. Just grab your pliers and carefully bend them back into place. You don't want to, bend them off by any means. It's still not the end of the world. We could desolder this whole piece if we had to and replace it if necessary. Both of these. But not advised. Now here I'm just going to make sure that, this ribbon, how's it going to lay down? And yeah, it's okay. There could have been a better spot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe if the headphone jack was here. Maybe that's, couldn't have been for whatever reason. But I think it's okay. And these line up perfectly. So I'm just going to use both hands, and boom, they just snap right in beautifully. Now if I had to take this apart, you know, it should just come right out, but I would want to try to find a way to secure both sides so that I don't put unnecessary stress on the PCB down here. All right, I got some little garbage pieces here out of the way. So from here, instructions tell me to put this down into here. I use 4 more black screws, so I still have the same bit that I was using for those. That's handy. So this is tightened up. I think this is kind of ready to go. All we got to do now is get these front plates on. This is the back plate. And let's see how this works. Yeah, this just nicely lines up here with everything. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to switch bits again. I'll put this up later. I think these small sizes, they kind of lose their charge over time. Okay, back piece and we're done. This one feels like it's a little, there he goes. Trying to get that headphone jack to kind of line up a little bit better there. Using my fingernail to just kind of drag it down carefully. That should do. And I still have 6 of these silver screws left, so I don't know what I'll do with the extras. Probably just put them back in the box, I guess. And I'm not going to like torque these down or anything. I'm just going to get them screwed down to be flush with the panel. And that should be good enough. There really should be no reason to open this up. Korg said to put these panels on to prevent dust from getting inside. Yeah, that's true. It's not the worst thing in the world, though, if dust gets in there. It's really more about, I would think, keeping little critters from getting in there. Okay, that's it. That was super easy to put together. So easy to put together. Does it work? How can we test? Well, I do have this battery here that I'm using to power the camera, and they did provide me with this USB cord, so let's give it a shot. So we'll just do a quick test and make sure that the speaker works. I won't test the headphone jack. That will be for when I do a little jam with this thing, which I think I will append to the end of this video, which will probably be highly edited, and that's okay. All right, I'm going to need to turn this around thusly so that this plays nicely with all the stuff that's on the table. Okay, so before I power this up, is there like a power button or anything? That's just volume. So yeah, I think as soon as I plug this in, it should just power right up. And it does. And it initializes. It says saw. Let's check out the filter. The envelope mod. So we got attack and release. Yeah, so mod is like your, ensemble. Ooh, this has an ensemble. Okay, folks, if this has a nice stereo ensemble, this is worth the money already. Of course, we're not going to hear that out of this little speaker, but we can hear maybe some phaser. Yeah, we can hear some phaser, right? Is there some flanger? We'll add some delay. Just mono because, there we go. And finally some reverb, which we won't notice so much, but some. Space is the one that you're probably going to want to use as a synthesizerist. And finally, the Arpeggiator. It got loud, didn't it? Wow, that's really cool.